Welcome to the Start to Finish Podcasting podcast, where we talk about everything podcasting. Audio recording, microphones, recording software, helpful podcasting tips, and much more. We help you create and improve your podcast, whether you're new to podcasting or an experienced professional. And now, your host, the man who wakes up every morning with podcasting on his mind, Andre Lewis.
Oh my God.
Wow, she really loves me. The lady at the end when she says, oh my gosh, she really loves me. And that's a good thing. Welcome to the Start to Finish Podcasting podcast with Andre Lewis, episode 34, podcast talk with Chris Curran. And today we're just going to talk about some podcasting things. Some things may be useful to you. Maybe talk about a little bit of recording, talk about a little bit of EQ, and just talk about Chris because he's a good guy. He's a good guy, and you'll find out why he's such a good guy in the beginning of this episode. So I am not going to wait. I am going to get started right now. Our guest today is the founder and lead instructor of Podcast Engineering School. He also currently produces or has produced podcasts for Forbes, Dun & Bradstreet, Johnson & Johnson, E+ Technology, and many more, including business authors such as Pamela S. Harper, Dr. Dan Peters, Laura Shin, Dr. Laura Mattia, and Eric Townsend. Our guest also is the founder of Fractal Recording, which is a complete podcast production solution for mid to large companies. Our special guest is also the author of Lead Beyond Your Limits. As well, he is the host of several podcasts, including the Podcast Engineering Show and the Mystic Show. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the man of podcasting, the man of podcast engineering, and the man of the hour, Chris Curran. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Really well, Andre. Thanks, man.
So good to have you here. I appreciate you coming. I really do. We got a lot to talk about here, but I want to first start off by saying, I really like you. I have a lot of guests, Chris, right? You know that, Chris? I have a lot of guests, but I really like you. You want to know why?
Why?
Because you're a Jersey guy, just like me.
Oh, Jersey!
Jersey is in the building, so everybody stand up.
That's
and
right.
not only are you a Jersey guy, you're not from South Jersey, you're a North Jersey guy like myself.
Oh. Wait, where are you?
I was in Union, New Jersey.
Oh, Union. All right. Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a huge difference between North and South Jersey. And I try to tell people that, but I guess they just think Jersey is Jersey.
Yeah. So many different areas, too.
Yeah. And before I forget, man, I gotta say this. So I heard a story about you when you lived in North Jersey. You were in a band and you had this gig in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And you stated that your band was playing on stage and then everybody just started moshing. And I'm like, whoa, moshing? I haven't heard of that in a long time, man.
Well, it was a hardcore show, and it was, 1992, 93? So it was, it was a hardcore show. It was expected moshing would happen.
And for those who don't know what moshing is, I'll tell you what it is. Moshing, or slam dancing, as they would say also, it's a style of dancing in which participants push or slam into each other. It originated in the early 1980s, and most of the time you mosh when, to punk rock or heavy metal. And that was like the 80s. So because you were doing all of that stuff in the 80s, before we start, Chris, I want to test your knowledge. I got 3 questions. Are you up for the challenge?
All right, let's do it.
All right. Okay, let's go. Nobody's ever gotten 3 right. I haven't done this on a podcast, but I've done it, at home with friends and things of that nature. So you ready for it? 3 questions.
I'm ready. I'll probably get 0 out of 3, but go ahead.
I don't know. You might. You're pretty knowledgeable here. All right. So name a song by Van Halen that starts with the letter J.
Van
you can
Halen?
get a hint. And you can get a hint.
Starts with the letter J.
Yep. Dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun.
I mean, you might as well give me a hint.
Might as well.
Oh, Jump. Duh. Oh my
You
God.
got it. You got it.
I'm such a fan of Van Halen in terms of like a real fan. So like the song Jump is like, you know how like a band like a lot of bands have one hit song that's like just a pop song, right? And that it gets incredibly famous, but like the real fans never like that song. Same with Soundgarden, like Black Hole Sun. Like I don't like that song. It's like, okay, Soundgarden is such a deep band, and Van Halen too. They got so many awesome songs, but yet Jump is the one everyone knows. It's weird.
Right, exactly. All right, you ready for your next question?
Okay.
All right, this song is titled "Pour Some Sugar on Me," and what group sings that song?
Def Leppard.
You got it, man. All right.
Although
so you
I
got
must
two,
say,
man.
I was into, well, that album I was not into, but before that, Pyromania, obviously Pyromania, and High and Dry.
Yep.
High and Dry was the first album I ever listened to on a Walkman where I had headphones on and the guitar started, and it started in my left ear, and then the other one started in my right ear, and I was like, oh my God, dude, this is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Walkmans. That was a long time ago. What's equivalent to a Walkman? I guess an iPod or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, well, nowadays it's just your phone. Plug in headphones to your phone, and that's it.
All right. So this is the last one. This one might be a little tough because, they weren't too big of a group. Everybody doesn't know them, but I do. It's great songs for me. What brother and sister group sings Crush on You?
Oh, I don't know that one. That's a pop question. That's not my strength right there.
All right. So I'll give you the answer. It's
Yeah.
the Jets.
The
The
Jets.
Jets.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Would have even when you tell me, I don't know.
I'll have to send you a link to one of the songs, man.
I know that one though. I know that pop song.
Oh, you know what?
But yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So you did well, man. You did better than a lot of people. So round of applause for Chris for
All right,
participating. All right. So Chris, who is Chris Curran, and how did you get started in audio engineering?
Oh man. Well, when I was in high school in the late '80s, I started playing drums, and me and my friend who lived down the street, we started jamming. He played guitar and I played drums, so we started jamming, and then we decided we had a bunch of songs and we wanted to record them, and we wanted our other friend to sing on our song. So I borrowed a 4-track recorder from my other friend, and I had to learn how to use it, and then we were just recording ourselves, and that's how I started recording, and I just loved it. Like, and I knew early on that like it's easy to screw it up, and it's a science, but it's also an art. And I really respected recording audio right from the beginning, and I really just, for some reason, I wanted to get good at it, and so yeah, that's when it started in high school, and then, well, after that, I continued from there. I went to 1 year of college, and then I decided college really wasn't for me, and so after that, I went to recording school because I was like, hey, why not learn how to be an engineer? So I did.
Wow. Okay. So in terms of you starting out, did you ever think that you would get where you are today?
I didn't know. I just, when I went to the recording workshop in Ohio, when I went there, and then it was a fairly short program, like 2 or 3 months. And then I was trying to get a job in New York City, in Manhattan, at one of the studios. And I was just hoping to get a job. And then as soon as I got my first internship in New York at Quad Recording, things just started happening, and and the whole time I was really eager to learn, and I loved it so much. So I think my love of it, and the fact that I was young and just like really, I was focused. It was that's what I wanted to do, and I was gonna do it, and of course had to work 1 million hours. That's part of it too. You don't get to have a life, when you're working in the studios a lot. So
right.
So I don't know. So within 3 or 4 years in New York, I had accomplished so much. Nowadays I look back on it and I'm like, yeah, I accomplished a lot in 3 or 4 years. So I didn't have a goal or anything. I probably should have, but I didn't.
All right. So you currently are the lead instructor and founder of the Podcast Engineering School. And with that said, I have a question related to that. So would you say you've learned more through your mistakes in podcasting, or you've learned more through the knowledge you've gained from others?
Well, so my situation is very unique. I mean, when you're, and anyone who's an actual audio engineer coming from the music business into podcasting is very simple. I mean, it's very simple. It's so simple that, well, everyone can do it, right? But not everyone can do it at the highest level. But so, I mean, there's a lot of audio engineering knowledge that I don't use anymore because I don't have to use it in podcasting. So, in terms of podcasting, I had to learn a lot of things, but I had to learn things about RSS feeds and, MP3 tagging, and I had to learn those things, but again, those are easy as well. But in terms of audio production, the knowledge I came in with was far more than enough. But since I've been producing podcasts for the last 7 or 8 years, I mean, I'm always someone who's trying to improve and dial things in better, and that's sort of feeds my plugin addiction, right? I buy new plugins because I want to try new compressors and EQs and all this cool stuff. So, I mean, I'm always learning, and I'm always trying to push myself to be better. And also, I don't want this one answer to go on too long, but, coming from music, like, podcasting is actually closer to radio than it is to music production. So in terms of like processing voices and producing episodes of like 2 or 3 people having a conversation, like I hadn't really done that before, and it's not a big deal. Like I said, I have enough audio engineering knowledge, but the thing that happens in podcasting though is probably 75% of the audio that's recorded sounds terrible. So immediately I have to go into rescue mode. I have to fix things. And so audio rescuing and audio restoration is something I never had to do in music production because you just did it right from the beginning. But in podcasting, because it's basically it's a hobbyist industry, no one really knows how to get good audio, and half the people don't even care. So you end up with all this crappy audio. So that's where I've learned the most in podcasting is handling, like, how do you take audio that sounds like absolute rubbish and try to make it listenable? That's where I've learned the most.
Yeah. It's pretty hard if you don't know what you're doing. So let me ask you this. Now, I myself, Chris, I do a lot of graphic designs. So when I'm doing a YouTube video and I record it and I get ready to, prepare it for YouTube, I tend to go way, way, way overboard with my thumbnails because I do graphic design. And I could just throw something up there that looks nice, but I tend to go like way, way beyond that. So as an engineer, you yourself, do you find yourself going overboard with post-production of your podcast? And do you think that engineering and podcasting go hand in hand?
Well, yes, I definitely go overboard quite a bit because that's where I learn. Like, that's my learning. So that's my continued learning. So, for instance, for my voice on my podcast, I have a certain plugin chain. So let's say I use, 5 or 6 plugins in a certain order, and the settings are all saved. And I could just record a new podcast and apply all those 5 or 6 plugins with my settings and just process it like that. But I don't do that. I'll listen to it and I might tweak something a little because maybe that day my voice had a little more low end in it or something, right? There's always little things that are different. So I always listen critically and tweak my settings every episode. And of course with the guest, with a guest, you're starting from scratch because you've never heard their voice before. So now I have to apply EQ and compression and mix it like that. So that takes quite a bit of time. But yeah, I'm often learning and going overboard. That's how I stay sharp. And what was the second part of your question?
Do you think that engineering and podcasting go hand in hand?
Well, no, engineering is a small part of podcasting. Like if you think of podcasting in general, even the great coaches like Dave Jackson will say that the most important thing is your message, right? And the content and all that. And then there's, of course, you need a website, you need graphics, you need marketing, you need like a million things. So the audio production part of it is just one part of it. Now, it is really important, and it's more important than people think. However, I'm not deluding myself and thinking that, audio engineering is the most important part of podcasting, because it's really not. I mean, I just listened to, in fact, I'm in the middle of an episode where Jordan B. Peterson on his podcast, he's interviewing Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan is calling in on the phone, which is weird. So he doesn't sound that good. And Jordan Peterson is talking into his computer mic. And when they talk at the same time, there's all this ducking thing going on. It's terrible. But guess what? Especially Jordan Peterson, I really like that guy. And I like Joe Rogan too. So I want to hear what they're saying. And so the audio is not great, but it's not terrible. But the content and the personalities are what keep me there. So
right.
Everyone says, like, your audio quality has to be good enough, at least good enough. And I agree with that. Not everyone has to do what I do. Not everyone has to be a maniac audio engineer in podcasting. You don't need that. But, I have a production company too. So I produce podcasts for big companies. So I need to produce professional audio because, I charge them a lot and they deserve a great product. So that's different than just the average podcaster.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I think I'm obsessed with audio, and I shouldn't be, and I know better. But I try to produce good content. I give it my all. But the audio is just, I don't know, man. I think I'm a little obsessed with it myself. But I've lightened up a little bit.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I've definitely lightened up with it. So. Let me ask you this. Do you think there are challenges with new podcasters, like keeping up with and understanding the new podcasting technology? I mean, some of it's simple, but some of it is just like, I spoke with one of my clients, and it wasn't the imposter syndrome that got him. It was the technology of, such and such uses this, and I don't know how to use it. And I tried to explain to him, you don't have to use everything that everybody else is using, but it's that technology that they're chasing, and they want to do what everybody else is doing, but they don't understand the technology. This particular client didn't. And do you feel that's keeping some new podcasters and holding them back?
Well, I think probably 90% of everyone who enters podcasting, like almost everyone who enters podcasting, they don't know anything, that's fine. They don't know anything yet. But then they don't even know what to learn. Like they don't know what questions to ask. And so what you have is they'll ask online. They'll ask in a Facebook group. And they'll ask a question like, hey, is this a good microphone to buy? And then, 47 people will comment about, oh, don't worry about a microphone. And no, this microphone's better. And make sure you do this. Like people get puked on with advice that they don't need, and that confuses them even more. So yeah, new people coming in have it tough, especially if they're not, a little bit technically savvy with audio. Like if they don't know anything about audio, it's hard, man. And so, I mean, there's a lot of people out there coming up with programs trying to help people who are getting started, and it's great. And I'm actually working on a project with a few other folks that might take that whole idea to another level, like new people coming into the industry and learning, just getting a quick education of what's what, how it works, what you need, and all that. Because it's totally dependent on what you want to do with your show, right? There's no, if all you had to do was buy that mic, buy that stand, get that piece of software, and that's that's called podcasting, then it would be easy. We could just tell everyone buy the same thing, but everybody's show is different. Some people do interviews over the internet. Some people do interviews in person. Some people go on location. Some people do internet and in person at the same time. Other people want to include sound effects. There's like a million things you could do, and the technological solution for each of those scenarios is vastly different. So it can be very confusing for sure.
Right. Having a podcast it's not only about recording and putting out your episode to the world. There's like much more involved. As a podcaster, we have to be great interviewers. We have to be social media experts. We have to be gurus in marketing and just knowledge in general. So with that said, how do you market your podcast engineering show and your services?
Yeah, so the marketing is the bane of my existence. Like I don't like marketing because mostly marketing is just hype. It's all just, you have to pump yourself up. You have to pretend like you're bigger than you are and cooler than you are and that everybody needs you. So marketing inherently is sort of like false and not authentic. And I don't like that. I mean, I understand that's what it is, but I don't like that. So, I'm more of an engineer type, obviously. Hey, it is what it is, and let's just call it what it is. But marketing is total, people trying to sell you stuff and reel you in and do psychological things to you, and which is okay. Okay, fine. I accept it. So in my case, I don't do much marketing at all. I mean, I started my show about 3 years ago, maybe a little over 3 years ago, and I just have been relying on my special talents and my special skills. The whole fact that I'm in the podcasting industry, but I'm an actual audio engineer, right? So I've been playing on that advantage. That's my advantage. And so I've just been putting out shows and doing the best, putting out the best podcast episodes I can. I've also been going to Podcast Movement and Podfest every year, like for the last 5-6 years. I've been to every single Podcast Movement since the first one, and I've been to every Podfest except the first one. So I go to a lot of events, and I talk to people, and then, and I put out content. I try to put out stuff. But I do the best I can because I don't know what to do. People look at my website. They're like, oh, you should have a better website or do this. And so I struggle with the back end of my website.
Do they really say that to you?
Well, no. Like if you talk to, here's a challenge. I challenge you and everyone listening. Go to a company that creates websites and ask them to review your website. And here's the answer you're going to get. Oh, this isn't good. Oh, yeah. You need to redo this. Oh, yeah, that's not good. Oh, yeah, that's old technology. Yeah. Oh, and you know what the upshot of it is? You need a new website. I'm telling you. I challenge any of you. Go to a company that creates websites for people and ask them to look at your current website. They will, I'm guarantee 100%, they will find a bunch of stuff wrong with it and say you need a new website.
I'm going to do that
Because they sell websites. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. That's part of that marketing and sales garbage that I can't stand. But no, there's a lot I could do. I mean, I have Podcast Engineering School, which is a rather expensive course. It's 7 weeks, and then it's a community ongoing for years. And people keep telling me, oh, you should put out shorter courses. And I understand that, and I probably will do that, but you know what I'm saying? Like everybody has their 2 cents. Everybody has their opinion. They're going to tell you what to do. So it's hard to handle sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to ask you, can you explain your podcast workflow in terms of preparation for a podcast episode?
Yeah, sure. So I basically identify a guest. So sometimes I'll meet people at these events who, I'll meet them and I'll ask them a few questions about, how they produce their show. And if it's interesting, so just a little background. My show, I talk about how other people are producing their show, meaning we go through their equipment, we go through their workflow, and we go pretty in depth, right? So my show, it's good for me to interview people who have some decent equipment, who do some post-production with, plugins and compressors and EQs and all that good stuff, and then maybe do, significant editing, So the person who just plugs in their ATR 2100 and just hits record and talks and then hits stop and they're done, that's their podcast, they're not a good fit for my show because I want to get into all the technical stuff. So when I meet technical people, I ask them to be on my show. And so that happens a lot at events. So after I know who the guest is going to be and I know they have some decent equipment, I actually have them fill out a little it's like a little questionnaire about their equipment and their workflow, so they can just kind of list out what they have and what they do, real quick. So that just gives me a picture of how they're producing podcasts, and then I know what we're going to talk about, basically. And then I give them a booking link. So I have a booking link that's attached to my calendar, so I just give them a link and say, hey, check out my calendar and book a time slot, whatever works for you. And so they book it. And then when we get on the call, I just make sure I always ask them to record themselves locally if they can, because that always helps if they can, or else I use Zencaster or Squadcast or something like that. And then we do the interview and we have a lot of fun. My show is a lot of fun. I just have fun and it's high energy.
Yeah, it is. It is. I love it.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to be anybody. We're just hanging out talking. And then after we record, my post-production is I bring all the separate tracks into Reaper. I still use Reaper as my DAW, which is a very underrated software. And I use all my plugins. I have a bunch of plugins and I mix it. I mix it like a song. I process each voice and I mix in the music and then I mix it down to stereo and then I do my editing. I also use Isotope RX7 to clean up anything, like if there's nasty hums or mouth clicks or plosives or, all that more technical stuff. And that's it. Then I edit it down and then I tag it. These days I'm actually mixing it down to an M4A file, not an MP3. So I make an M4A and I tag it. And I use Fission for that, actually, which is a Rogue Amoeba program, Fission, to create the M4A and tag it. And then I have Libsyn for my host, so I upload it to Libsyn and schedule it.
All right. Wow. Okay. Chris, I gotta ask you this because some of these questions that I'm asking you are for my new podcasters, because a lot of my listeners are fairly new to podcasting, but I think this question would be a little inspirational for them. What did your first podcast sound like? Because I ask that because we say this all the time, but yet new podcasters that I work with, they still, they just don't get it. Podcasting, you grow. You grow, you get better. So the first one may not sound good, but I try to tell them that, and some of them they get it, some of them they just striving to sound good, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just want them to know that. Some people's podcasts may sound good. Some people's may not. The first one. How did yours sound? Your first one? Yeah, the very first audio I ever recorded for a podcast was, right when I found out about podcasts, and I just wanted to record one. So it was in my apartment in New Jersey before I even opened my podcasting studio in New Jersey, and it was just me. I was gonna call it the Chris Curran Show, and anyway, that was my idea. And so the first episode was just going to be me talking about, hey, I'm going to start this show. And so I was in our apartment, and my wife was actually sitting on the couch like 10 or 15 feet away. And so I was just kind of talking, awkwardly like, hello, whatever. And every now and then I would look at her and I just kind of joked with her. I played off her a little bit in the episode. You couldn't hear her. She wasn't mic'd up at all or anything, but anyway, it was like 20, 25 minutes. Yeah. And I'm sure it didn't sound that great in terms of, compared to what I'm doing now. But
But of course, I mean, I still knew how to work a microphone back then. So I probably was using some sort of a handheld mic, or maybe my Shure SM57 back then. But yeah, I mean, when you start, it's going to be what it is. And there's no, like, you can't get to second base or third base until you run to first base first. So you got to go to first base. And when you go to first base, that means you got to start putting out episodes. People are afraid of that too. They're like, oh, I don't know. Or they want it to be perfect. And it's like, no, just start putting them out. Like, first, make sure your audio is good enough or better. And then just start doing stuff and have fun. And then after you do 2 or 3 episodes, you're going to be like, oh, that one thing I do in the episode, I don't like it. I'm not going to do it anymore. Perfect. And then you're going to say, oh yeah, well, I've been connecting guests with Skype and it sounds terrible. So I'm going to start using, Squadcast. Okay, good. So you learn as you go, and you have to just trust that you're going to learn, because you'll learn. And then very quickly, I'd say 5 to 7 episodes, you'll have a good handle on what you're doing now, and you'll continue to improve after that. But that initial, like, oh my God phase it doesn't last very long.
Right. What was your biggest hurdle in podcasting?
Well, my hurdle is always the marketing and the how to get listeners. Like, I still don't know how to do that, and I don't do anything to do that. Like, I just put out my show and it goes on my website, and I put it out on some social media. So marketing is my big hurdle. And I don't, even with my school, like with podcast engineering school, like, I mean, it's been great so far. Over the last 2+ years, we've had about 60 students come through, and it's been awesome, and everybody loves it. But I don't do any marketing because I don't know what to do. So marketing for me is the killer.
Okay. All right. I want to jump into a few recording questions. We hear a lot about what you should do after you record your podcast in terms of post-production. But what are some of the things that you think one should do before they hit the record button?
Well, in terms of content, like, you kind of have to be clear on what you're going to do. And that doesn't take much, actually. Like I was saying before, with my show, I have a format for my show. It's that first we do the speed round, when I ask them to just overview their production process real quick, like within a minute or 2. And then we spend the rest of the episode picking through that and picking it apart and going into detail. That's the formula for my show. It's simple. There's no possible way I can forget it. So with that simple formula in place before we hit record, now when I hit record, I know what I'm going to do, and then I could just have fun doing it. So content-wise, you kind of have to just have an outline or be prepared. And that doesn't mean you can't go off script either. Meaning script in quotes, like not an actual script, because I don't script anything. But go off plan. You can go off plan. So the content is the big thing, and then the technology is the other part, the other big thing. So you got to make sure that you go through practice sessions with your equipment and set it up and record in the room as if you're doing an episode, and try to get a good level and record it into the right software that you want to record into, and then listen and then see if the room not a good room. Is it too echoey? Is there the sound bouncing around too much, or the kids in the next room coming through the microphone? Like, so the space you record in, you have to make sure it's a decent space to record in. Those are things you do in advance, and you just do it by just recording some audio, test it out, and things like that. Even microphones, like some people have 2 or 3 microphones they could use. And so try each one and then listen back to it and see which mic you like best, right? So technologically, you should be prepared. So when you sit down and when you're hitting record, you shouldn't have to worry about, where's my microphone plugged in, and where's my volume knob, and where's my mute button, and right? You should know all that already. So that way, your conscience is free, and now you can just have fun.
Okay. Now, 2 of the main things people complain about with their podcast when they're first starting off that I've spoken with was reverb and background noise. Which one's easier to work with in terms of removing it?
Yeah, they're both not good. Well, no, they're both terrible. So reverb is, like I was saying, if you're in a room where there's a lot of echo, like usually it's when there's hardwood floors and bare walls, and then you could just, it sounds like you're in a hallway, right? So that's not good. I mean, there are certain software and plugins that can remove some of the reverb, but it can't remove it all like spotlessly. Like, it's not magic software, right? Like, it can remove some of it, but if you try to remove too much reverb, it's actually going to destroy the quality of the audio. So it's not magic. So there's a golden rule in audio engineering. You ready for the golden rule?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Drum roll, please.
Record it properly the first time. Don't record something and be like, oh, it sounds like crap, but yeah, we'll fix it later. We'll fix it in post. Don't ever do that. That's the worst. You know what? And if you don't know why, do it. Do it once. And then you'll understand, like, oh, it's not so easy to fix this reverb. Oh, it sounds like crap now. Well, what do we do? Nothing. It's already ruined. So the key is fix it beforehand. Like, make sure you don't record reverb when you're recording, or record as little as possible. Now, background noise is another thing. Like, in terms of, like, if it's like a fan or a refrigerator running in the background, like, that's sort of like static background noise, which you can remove some of that, but again, not too much. You can remove some of it. But if it's like a dog barking or a car, like a honking horn of a car, like, that stuff pretty much you can't get rid of. So again, none of this is magic. The technology doesn't exist yet where you can record a terrible piece of audio that sounds like garbage and then just magically hit a few buttons and it sounds wonderful. So, preparation.
All right. I'm gonna got a few more questions about EQ, and then I'm gonna get you out of here. What is your primary use for EQing when you're recording a podcast?
Yeah, so I do EQing in post-production, and I think it's worth noting that I don't do any processing. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't do much processing before the signal's recorded. So you should record it clean. Just record it clean at a good level. Then in post-production, then you can start using compressors and EQs. That's a general rule of thumb. Yeah, I use EQ in post-production. I use EQs on every voice I ever produce, ever, if not multiple EQs. So there's a lot to do with EQs. A lot of times you want to roll off the low end. There's too much low end from maybe 80 hertz and below, or 110 hertz and below. Like, it just sounds muddy. It sounds not clear, if you want to think of it that way. And so if you remove some of those low frequencies, it just sounds more clear. Boom. The other thing is the low mids, that's a whole different conversation. And the other thing is the high frequencies with the clarity. Like, you want enough clarity in the voice. So if there's not enough clarity, you can boost the high frequencies and the voice will sound more clear. And there's different types of EQs. I mean, EQ is a subject. I mean, well, obviously in my school we go way into it, but yeah. So if you're using, I will say, if you're using decent microphones, that makes everything a lot easier. So if you're using even the standard ATR 2100, it's a very good microphone, very decent.
Good mic, very good mic. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Very decent. And then you have all the little higher end mics are great too. So if you're using a good mic, you just need to do a little bit of EQ. But if someone is joining, on Skype through their earbuds while they're on a train, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to make that sound good, right? So in those cases, you have to struggle a bit more with EQ to make it clear, or to EQ out the bad resonant frequencies. That's why, again, record it correctly the first time. So yeah, EQ is, and knowing a little bit of EQ is really helpful. Like, you don't have to be an audio engineer, but if you just know how to clear something up a little bit or add some, a lot of times it's too thin. The recording is too thin. It sounds really thin and wimpy, and you need to add some low frequencies. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling now.
No, that's fine. It's good information. It's good information. Now, when you're in post-production, is it best to edit in terms of listening to what you're editing with monitor speakers, headphones, or, some people even do it in a car. So which one is better?
Well, so in reality, you do whatever you got to do. So most people only have headphones, or some people only have earbuds. And by the way, everyone, there is a difference between earbuds and headphones and a headset. Those are 3 different things. So just when you're naming something, try to use the correct name, because then everyone else will know what you're talking about. Because people say headphones, they mean earbuds, and earbuds are not headphones. So, yeah, so here's the thing about monitoring. Like, you listen through whatever you got. If you have decent headphones, use them. I have pretty good monitor speakers up. So I like to listen. I set up a little, it's almost like a mini control room recording studio here. So I like to listen to my speakers in the room, and I have them positioned in the room properly. I have them, I use some software to flatten out the EQ curve so I know exactly what I'm hearing. And the room I'm in is it's not too live of a room, meaning there's not much reverb. So I love listening through monitor speakers. And, in terms of real audio engineers, like an audio engineer would never only use headphones. Like, an audio engineer would always want speakers. Now you can reference the headphones. Like, you can listen to the speakers for, 90% of the time, and then you just put on headphones to listen through the headphones for a little bit, just to check your mix and check how it sounds there, because it gives you some better perspective. But speakers are usually the best and easiest to work with in terms of mixing and editing and stuff. But they're not necessary for almost all podcasters. So you don't need to run out and buy speakers. But hey, if you're going to be producing podcasts for other people and you're really into audio, then yeah, maybe someday you would want to get some monitor speakers and get a setup like that.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I first started podcasting, I had some Beats by Dre, and that the lows in these things are just unbelievable. It's made for songs like, you have a lot of bass, it sounds good, but so I used to edit with these headphones, and after doing all of that, the EQing and all of that stuff, I would go inside my car and listen to it, and it sounded everything was just high. It was just like, it sounds so clear. But listening with these Beats by Dre, I thought it was just too much low end throughout the whole thing, and it was just like, no, it's these headphones. So they got to, just so the listeners know, they got to be real careful about what headphones you use to edit your podcast, because not all headphones are the same. Some of them have these high frequencies. They're made like that. And, some of them are they are what they are. So it's just funny how I used to run back and forth from headphones inside my car just to see if it sounds good. I told you I was obsessed.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what you got to do. So what, if you're not monitoring the audio properly, then that means that you don't know what you're hearing. So you might think, I'll add some more low end because it sounds good. But if you don't know what you're hearing, you don't know, maybe the low end is fine where it is, and you're adding too much. So the key in audio production, in serious audio production, is you have to know what you're hearing, like literally. So and then you have to get used to your speakers and get used to your headphones, and the way you do that is checking it in different places, like listen in your car, like you said, listen on your TV, listen through your ALEXA, everything. So that's how you sort of train your ears, and then once your ears are trained, then you don't have to go around in the car and listening all the time because you've already trained your ears. So,
all right. So this is my last question. What do you think of the DBX 286?
Yeah, it's okay. It's a decent channel strip. It's not the highest quality piece of gear, but for a lot of podcasters, serves the purpose, which is typically people buy that because, well, for two reasons. They might be using a microphone that needs more gain. So the DBX 286S adds a little more gain than the average preamp, which is fine. And then the other thing people get it for is the gate, which I actually, people use a gate because, like, let's say they do have an air conditioner that's running in the room, and they're like, ooh, when I stop speaking, I want the gate to close, and so no one can hear the air conditioner when I'm not speaking. That's okay, but first of all, that's not the right way to record audio. Like, you should turn off that. You should remove that sound from the room. Like, because you have a sound that shouldn't be there, and now you're going through extra steps to try to get rid of it, which you're not really getting rid of it, by the way. When you're using a gate, yeah, it might be silent when you're not talking, but as soon as you open your mouth and talk, the air conditioner is going to be there.
Right. Yep.
So the thing is, the gate, and I never use a gate when I'm recording, because, like, you can use a gate in post-production all day, all you want, go nuts. But using a gate when you're recording, you're running the risk of chopping off the beginnings and the ends of your words. And if you chop off the beginning or the end of words, you can't get them back. So using a gate to tape, as we say, is just not a good audio strategy. I know some people do it because other people say to do it. So you can do whatever you want. But yeah, so that's one reason why people buy the DBX 286S. It does have a compressor as well, and it does have the high frequency detail and the low frequency detail. So it has the big bottom and the clarity, which it's kind of like an EQ, and most people overdo that as well. They'll like add all this bass to their voice. They're like, yes, I sound like I'm on radio, man. Yeah, man. Meanwhile, it sounds terrible.
Yeah,
so,
right.
You know what I mean? So
exactly.
The amateur move is to overdo everything. So, but you can do that as you're learning. As you're learning, I suggest overdo everything and then dial it back, and you'll learn where it should be, where it sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Chris, I'm going to get you out of here on your last word. Just, if you have, what do you have going on with the podcasting engineering school or any other services that you have?
Well, my school is there. Like I said before, it's for people who are really serious about audio production, mostly people who want to do editing and production for other people who want to make a living. I'm in podcasting full time. I have a production company and I have the school. And so podcasting is my life. And a lot of other people want podcasting to be their life. They don't like their day job. So if you get trained at my school, then you could start producing podcasts for other people, and then you could start charging a lot of money because you're a professional. You can actually make a living, which is awesome. So I'm just having fun doing that. Information about my school is on the website, podcastengineeringschool.com. And I also do a live stream every Wednesday evening called the Podcasters Lounge. So the lounge is a live stream. You can hang out and talk there. I also put out a daily email, a little tidbit of audio production information, or a tip, or a quote, or not a quote. I don't do quotes. I do what is it? The trivia of the week. Anyway, just cool little tidbits for audio production. I call it the Daily Goodie. So if you want to get the Daily Goodie, you can sign up for that too. But and if anyone has any questions, just ask me. I'm here to help. If you have, you need a little help deciding what your next piece of gear is that you should buy, you find me anywhere. Find me on Facebook or Twitter and just ask me. I'm happy to help.
Chris, thank you so much, man, for being a guest on the show, man. I honestly, man, I really enjoyed it, man. I know you're a cool guy, man, and I can hear it in your show. You just relax. You're just a cool, funny guy, and that's what attracted me to ask you to come on the show, and I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, happy to be here, Andre. I really enjoyed this. The last interview I did, the last time I was a guest on a show, it was excruciatingly painful because, well, for various reasons. But you were the exact opposite. You really made me feel good and have fun, and I enjoyed being here and talking with you. Hopefully, I shared some good stuff because when I'm a guest, I'm talking, but I don't know if it's any good.
Oh yeah. It was great, man. Every little bit of it was great, man. So, Chris, thank you so much, man, and I appreciate you.
Cool. Thanks, Andre.
All right, have a good one, sir.
See you.
And there you have it, episode 34 with Chris Curran. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was great for me, and I really do hope you enjoy it. Please don't forget to subscribe, starttofinishpodcasting.com, and make sure you are listening to the Start to Finish Podcasting podcast to get all your tips and information. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your day. Thank you, and keep podcasting.
Thank you for listening to the Start to Finish Podcasting podcast at www.starttofinishpodcasting.com. Don't forget, you can listen to the Start to Finish Podcasting podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. You can also visit our social media pages on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. Thanks for listening.